What are your relations with Mike Quigley and NBN Co at the moment, and when are you going to meet with them next?
Well, we haven't been able to meet with Mr Quigley yet, but I think we're seeing him on the 8th. But I don't know him, so I don't have a relationship with him. But looking forward to having one with him.
Do you think, in hindsight, it might have been better for the coalition not to be quite so personally critical of NBN Co prior to the election? Do you think that's going to make,
I don't think there's been any personal. I don't think there's been any personal criticism of any people.
You call them stodgy bureaucrats and talentless.
Oh, I didn't say
not
that.
You personally.
I'm not aware of that. So.
Okay. All right. Can you tell us a little bit more about how cost-benefit analysis might work? We hear a lot about it, but what are some of the assumptions? Who should do it? What are some of the outcomes that you're looking to come out of that?
Well, the first thing you've got to do is ask, what is the problem we're seeking to address? What do we want to achieve here? And then having done that, then look at different ways of doing it and, assess their relative costs, all to this approach, that, upgrading the current network versus building a new network, dealing with black spots and disadvantaged areas directly versus, creating a whole new fibre optic fibre optics to the home world, to compare them, look at their cost, obviously, model their revenues. You've got to work out what the financial, outcome for this investment would be, and then you've got to form a view about any externalities, productivity benefits. You've got to ask yourself, for example, we all agree that. Wired access to broadband is productivity enhancing, but what does that mean? Does that mean 100 megs, or does it mean 12? Or can you, what are the productivity enhancing applications that require bandwidth of this scale that is being proposed by NBN? And that's a very relevant question to the question of externalities, because if you can achieve the same spillover benefits with a lesser investment which may deliver less bandwidth to the customer, then that's something you've got to take into account.
If the cost-benefit analysis did come back with an unequivocal yes, go ahead and do it, would the coalition at that point support it?
Well, it would depend. No one in their right mind anyway, and I fall into that category. No one would ever give a blank cheque to an analysis that hasn't even been done, that the terms of reference haven't even been written for. But a good cost-benefit analysis will be very transparent, will set out all its assumptions, will enable people to, play with those assumptions, to change them and form their own view about them. And it will inform a debate, and so it could be very influential, absolutely. But no one's going to, give it a tick in advance.
What sort of terms of reference?
One more question.
Okay.
Yeah.
What sort of terms of reference would you build into a cost-benefit analysis?
Well, I think again, this is not intending to be exhaustive, but if you step through it, the first thing you've got to do is ask, what is it that you're seeking to achieve? Are we seeking to deal with regional and remote areas? Are we seeking to deal with black spots in metropolitan areas? Are we seeking to deliver higher speeds, ubiquitously? Work out what it is you're seeking to achieve, and then look at different ways. What are the alternatives? How can those objectives be met? You can then rank them in terms of their cost. You can have a discussion about their effectiveness. Obviously, you'd have to model the NBN approach, and so you've got to ask yourself, what are the likely revenues from this? You've got to form some assumptions about likely take-up. You've got to form some assumptions about, the likely ARPU, the revenue, and that will then drive a financial outcome. From what we know, and we don't know a lot about the financial modelling underpinning the NBN, or that's been done. But what we know from the NBN implementation study is that the assumptions there, which deliver a very anaemic return, let's be honest, it's not a commercial return, are extremely optimistic. You know, when anyone comes in with a business plan that says, here is my, my product, my new service, and I'm assuming that we're going to get between 80 and 90% of the target audience will take it up, and they'll pay, a pretty high price for it. You would say, well, I hope you're right. God bless you for your confidence and faith, but let's have a look at something a bit more realistic before we actually commit some dollars.